talking at me, they're never making sense, asking every question, I'm never on the fence. I try to answer questions, the things inside my head, concentrate on small things, live before I'm dead. Lowell, Massachusetts, a childhood spent in dreams, a life that's disconnected, nothing as it seems. Believe me, I need all the help I can get. I listen to you, you listen to me, typewriter blue.
We're blessed here tonight. In all seriousness, this isn't false exaggeration to have with us one of the greatest authorities around on the beat writers, particularly Jack Kerouac. We're blessed with this man's presence. Give a warm round of applause to Mr. Simon Warner, please.
Jean-Louis Le Bris de Kerouac. He was born on March the 12th, 1922. And it doesn't take a linguist or a geographer to realize that hidden within the rhythms of that name is plenty of Frenchness.
At the age of 7, I went to St. Louis Parochial School, a particularly Dr. Sachsish school. It was in the auditorium of this kingdom that I saw the stage-to-raise movie that made stone turn its head. There were bazaars. My mother officiated at a booth. There were kisses free, candy kisses and real kisses, with all the local, mustachioed Parisian Canadian blades rushing up to get theirs before they run off to join the army in Panama, like Henry Fortier did.
John is gone now, his soul has flown, left in the graveyard all alone. Life can seem empty when you're so young, nothing seems real, eternal song.
Music travelled with those people. The stars of jazz and blues, which will become so warmly received by the young Kerouac and the older Kerouac, were coming north also. But just to return to Kerouac and say that he, in the 1930s, proved to be a very talented young man. He was capable of intellect in the classroom, but he was also a brilliant sportsman.
Soldiers, sailors, the panhandlers and drifters, the zoot suiters, the hoodlums, the young men who washed dishes in cafeterias from coast to coast, the hitchhikers, the hustlers, the drunks, the battered, lonely young Negroes, the twinkling little Chinese, the dark Puerto Ricans, and the varieties of dungareed young Americans in leather jackets who were seamen and mechanics and garagemen everywhere.
Every lunchtime on Times Square, midnight revelries on Madison Avenue. I live down on the street where Dizzy Bird and Miles provide the soundtrack to my life. The sound of New York City nights, the sound of poetry, the sound of all of Broadway rain.
And the three of them and their wider circle drew up something called the New Vision. They decided that together they were going to create an art that was experimental, that relied on outside stimulants, from alcohol to drugs to meditation, and they also rejected the conventional and rather constraining moral codes of the day.
Now, can you share with us, Simon, exactly what the Beat Generation was, who they were, and what the heck was the meaning of the word beat?
And I think this loose gathering of young writers and creatives felt as if they needed an umbrella themselves to shelter under. And they had a friend who operated on the twilight margins of Times Square called Herbert Huncke. He was a small-time criminal, a drug addict of various kinds, but he used the word beat to describe his condition. And Kerouac and Holmes recognized in some ways some of Huncke's characteristics in their own lives. But in 1951, he sits down for 3 weeks and writes up his 1946-1950 adventures into the novel On the Road. And he famously uses a huge roll of teletype paper, which he puts into his typewriter. And this means that he doesn't need to change his A4 pages every few minutes. And so he's already using this radical technique to deliver his work.
Dean took the wheel and carried us clear to the top of the world. We passed a great shroudy cement factory in the canyon, then we started down. Dean cut off the gas, threw in the clutch, and negotiated every hairpin turn and passed cars and did everything in the book without the benefit of an accelerator. I held on tight. Sometimes the road went up again briefly. He merely passed cars without a sound on pure momentum. He knew every rhythm and every kick of a first-class pass. And when it was time to U-turn left around the low stone wall that overlooked the bottom of the world, he just leaned far over to his left, hands on the wheel, stiff-armed, and carried it that way.
Hey Jack, turn around and look at me. Don't you like everything you see? Give me $1 for our love. 20 cents will never do. We can dance out in the rain.
I don't think we can say Kerouac was anything like I think he was a 1950s sexist, and I don't think we can escape that. And I think we need to read his work in those terms. But he had relationships with women, and women had relationships with the beats, which were not just sexual, they were also aesthetic and artistic.
Post-war America, we're on the way. Burning flags behind us now. We are taking sides.
He decided that he needed to try and escape the distractions of the city, the fights and the rows that he was getting into around the bars of various parts of New York. And he asked his friend, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, the publisher, poet, and owner of City Lights bookshop in San Francisco, if he could go out to the West Coast and stay in Ferlinghetti's Bixby Canyon cabin.
And then he would secretly drive me to his cabin in the Big Sur woods, where I'd be alone and undisturbed for 6 weeks, just chopping wood, drawing water, riding, sleeping, hiking, etc. But instead, I've bounced drunk into his City Lights bookshop at the height of Saturday night business. Everyone recognized me, even though I was wearing my disguise-like fisherman's hat and fisherman's coat and pants waterproof. And all ends up a roaring drunk in all the famous bars. The bloody king of beatniks is back in town, buying drinks for everybody. 2 days of
Sad
that.
to say, the following year, 1969, Kerouac, a mere 47, would drink himself to death.
Happy, sweet 60.